Imagine, just for a moment, you're standing right at the edge of war. Everything you know, your daily life, it just starts coming apart. And every single choice, even little things, suddenly feels impossibly heavy. Decisions you never thought you'd face, right and wrong, getting all blurry under this huge shadow of, well, occupation. Today, we're diving deep into a story that really forces us to grapple with those kinds of realities. It's Kristin Hanna's huge international bestseller, The Nightingale. And this isn't just any book, right? It's become this global thing published in 45 languages, sold over 4.5 million copies. It's clearly hit a nerve with people everywhere. So our mission here for you is to guide you through this really compelling story of two sisters in World War II France. We'll dig into the amazing real-life people and events that inspired their fictional journeys, and crucially, we'll try to understand why this book resonates so much. Think of it as your shortcut to getting really informed about a truly harrowing, but also ultimately inspiring piece of history. Okay, let's set the scene then. The year is 1939. We're in France. World War II is literally about to explode. And our story follows two sisters, Vianne and Isabelle. They're estranged, and their lives are about to be completely turned upside down by the German occupation. Their paths forward. Totally different, but both are defined by, well, incredible courage and these impossible choices they have to make.
Yeah, and what's so interesting is how Hanna uses this fictional story to shine a light on the different ways people resisted and survived during occupation. Often in hidden ways, you know.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about big questions, morality,
Yeah.
what choices people actually had, and just the incredible resilience humans can show, how much people can endure.
Right. Let's start with Vianne Mauriac. She's the older sister. Picture her. She's a school teacher, married to Antoine. They have a daughter, Sophie, living this, well, seemingly perfect life in their childhood home, Le Jardin, in this little town called Carriveau. Pretty idyllic. But then, bang, Antoine gets drafted, then captured. And just like that, Vianne's world is shattered. She's alone, facing the occupation.
And her first challenge is just surviving
Quietly.
domestically. It's a kind of bravery we don't always talk about. She's dealing with food shortages, losing her job, money running out, and then the awful reality of having German soldiers billeted in her own home. First, the regular Wehrmacht, then the SS. Can you imagine? It's not just hardship. It's this constant psychological pressure, this invasion.
That constant presence, yeah. It must have been unbearable, and it forces her into these awful situations almost immediately. Like, she deals with two very different officers. First, there's Wolfgang Beck. Seems okay. You know, family back in Germany. He even helps Vianne, looks into Antoine's status. But that's sort of builds a tiny bit of dangerous trust. Because then he asks her for a list of Jewish teachers. And that leads directly to her best friend, Rachel, being deported. And after Beck, it gets even worse. Von Richter moves in. Utterly sadistic, subjects Vianne to physical and sexual abuse. Just horrific.
And that whole sequence, especially with Beck, it really hits on that core question, doesn't it? How do you make moral choices when your own survival or your child's survival is on the line? Vianne's actions, that initial hesitation, the later complicity, the desperate things she does, they show just how blurred those lines become in wartime. It really lays bare the immense pressure she was under. Heroism isn't always black and white, is it? Sometimes it's about these impossible calculations.
Absolutely. Choices nobody should ever have to make. But then Vianne's story takes this dramatic turn. She doesn't just survive passively anymore. After Rachel is taken, that's the trigger. Vianne takes in Rachel's little boy, Ari. He's only 3. She renames him Daniel to hide that he's Jewish. And this single act of, well, quiet defiance, it sort of snowballs. She ends up hiding 19 more Jewish children in an orphanage at a nearby abbey. The Mother Superior there helps her, thankfully. And she even, in this moment of sheer desperation, kills Beck to protect her sister Isabel and a downed Allied pilot she was hiding.
And that arc, Vianne's transformation, it really connects to so many real stories, these unsung women who risked absolutely everything in their lives, their children's life, to shelter Jewish people. Her shift from just trying to endure to becoming this active rescuer, it's incredibly powerful. It shows how extraordinary courage can bloom in ordinary people, driven by love, really, in the face of pure evil.
Such a powerful contrast to her sister, Isabelle Rossignol, the younger sister. She's fiery, impulsive, independent, refuses to just sit back. Yeah. She gets kicked out of finishing school, and she is just determined to actively fight back against the occupation. She literally walks from Paris to Carriveau to find the resistance, meets Gaëtan Dubois, another young rebel, along the way. She's all action.
Exactly. Isabelle represents that overt defiance.
Yeah.
Active rebellion. It's a different kind of courage, but just as vital. Her journey goes from handing out anti-Nazi leaflets in her town, which is dangerous enough, to setting up these complex escape routes in Paris for Allied airmen who've been shot down. It shows that resistance wasn't just one thing, right? You had Vianne's hidden acts, and then Isabel's very direct, very risky confrontation, both crucial.
And she becomes famous for it, in a way, gets the codename the Nightingale, becomes legendary for guiding dozens of pilots over the Pyrenees Mountains into Spain. Super dangerous work. And back in Paris, she connects with Gaetan again, who's also deep in the resistance. So there's this personal connection mixed in with all the danger.
But taking on that kind of high-profile, dangerous role, it comes at a huge cost. Isabel's eventually caught, she's brutally tortured, but she doesn't give anyone up. It just underscores the horrific reality for active resistance members. And the sacrifices, oh my God, her father, Julian. He finds out she's captured, and he falsely confesses to being the Nightingale himself, just to save her. He's executed for it. Just an unimaginable act of love and sacrifice. Absolutely heartbreaking.
God, yeah, both sisters just go through hell. Isabel ends up in a concentration camp in Germany. Horrific conditions. She barely survives until the Americans liberate the camp. She manages to get back to Vianne and Carriveau. They finally reconcile after all that time and distance. And the war, it just takes everything. Isabel gets sick, typhus, pneumonia from the camp, and she dies right there in Gaetan's arms after everything she survived. It's just tragic.
That reunion, even though it's so brief and ends so sadly, it highlights those incredibly strong family bonds forged in crisis. But it also shows the scars of war, the ones you can't always see. Physical, psychological. They linger. Think about Vianne's secret, the baby she has by von Richter. She keeps it from Antoine when he returns. And she decides never to tell her son, Julian, who his real father is. That secret, born from trauma, it hangs over them. It shows how war keeps echoing long after it's over, shaping lives in hidden ways.
So thinking about these incredibly personal stories, how much is rooted in reality? We know the characters are fictional, but their actions feel so real.
They absolutely are inspired by real history, and knowing that gives the story even more weight, I think. It's not just fiction.
Especially Isabel's part, right? The escape route work.
Definitely. Her whole operation, guiding pilots over the Pyrenees, that's directly inspired by the real-life comment line. It was organized by an amazing young Belgian woman, André de Jong. She was only 24. She personally escorted 118 airmen to safety. Survived Ravensbrück concentration camp, lived until 2007, actually became a countess. Just legendary courage. Apparently, the Nazis initially just couldn't believe a young woman could run such a complex network. That disbelief might have, ironically, helped protect her for a while.
Wow, that's incredible. And Vianne's story, too, protecting the children.
Yeah, Hanna used de Jong's story as a starting point, but then researched other women in the French resistance, women who risked everything to hide Jewish families. That research really shaped Vianne's character, that quiet, profound heroism. It reminds you there were so many ways people resisted, so many acts of courage, big and small, overt and hidden, all vital.
And the book itself, its impact didn't stop with readers, did it? Hollywood noticed pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, The Nightingale was a massive commercial success. It spent, 45 weeks on the NPR bestseller list? And 20 weeks on the New York Times list. Huge. Kirkus reviews mentioned it had a tendency to sentimentalize things a bit, but still called it respectful and absorbing, which is interesting, that critique. Does that emotional pull, maybe bordering on sentimental, take away from it? Or is that exactly why it connected with millions of people so deeply?
That's a really good question. Maybe that emotion is key to its appeal. Hollywood certainly thought it had power. TriStar Pictures picked up the rights back in 2015, and then began this really long, complicated journey to get it made. Different directors, different writers involved over the years. And the big casting news, for anyone interested in movies, was getting Dakota and Elle Fanning actual sisters to play Vianne and Isabel. It would have been the first time they actually shared scenes together in a movie, so that built up a lot of buzz.
But then, the film hit major roadblocks. Melanie Laurent was set to direct initially. But the COVID-19 pandemic just caused delay after delay. I remember reading production was halted less than a week before they were supposed to start shooting. It got pulled from the release schedule multiple times. Just chaos, like for so many things that. But good news recently, just this past July, they announced the project is back on. Michael Morris is directing now. And TriStar has actually set a release date, February 12th, 2027. Yeah. So mark your calendars. The fact that they stuck with it for so long through all those delays really says something about the story's pull, doesn't it? Hollywood wasn't giving up on it.
Definitely speaks volumes. So let's bring it all together. What's the big takeaway for us, for you listening?
The Nightingale really drops you right into the heart of World War II, but through these very personal lives. It shows us heroism isn't just, big battlefield moments. It's also in the quiet, desperate things people do just to survive, to resist, to hold on to some shred of humanity when everything is falling apart, often where you least expect it.
Exactly. And this deep dive really highlights how historical fiction can make these huge critical moments feel real and human. It lets us understand the impossible choices people faced, and the impact of war, how it lasts for generations, often in secret ways. That whole thing with Vianne's son Julian never knowing his true father, that's such a powerful example of those hidden scars war leaves behind. It reaches so far beyond the fighting.
And for you, our listener, it's maybe a reminder that history isn't just dates and grand events. It's full of these countless personal stories, bravery, resilience, often from people history books don't talk much about. And those stories, they shape identities, they shape families, they shape the world in ways we're maybe still figuring out. It really makes you wonder, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you were faced with that kind of pressure, life and death stakes, what kind of courage would you find in yourself? Would you be like Vianne, the quiet protector? Or more like Isabel, right out there on the front lines of defiance? Something to think about, maybe, after listening today. Perhaps it even makes you want to pick up the book if you haven't, or look forward to that film adaptation finally coming out. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the Nightingale.